Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Shop online and get $30 off your first online order when you use code SAVE30 at checkout. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started at Safeway.com or the Safeway app.
Hey, happy Monday. Hope you found a way to stay cool this weekend. It's supposed to stay hot most of the week. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani.
Coming up, why thousands of people took to the streets Saturday in several Colorado cities.
More people oppose him than support him.
Then, Congress could force the sale of public lands in Colorado.
To help you envision that, that's larger than all of Colorado Springs.
We'll explain the proposal that would impact every western state except one.
Plus, your Colorado Wonders question about how to see indie films in theater.
I have to go to see my family in New York or Chicago to see movies that I can't see in Denver.
It's Monday, June 16th. Here's what's happening in Colorado today.
People came out in force around Colorado on Saturday for the No Kings protests against President Donald Trump. In Denver, people marched for miles around downtown. Colorado Springs downtown also drew thousands of people, and passing cars honked their support. Navy veteran Roger Strokeland told us he was there because he took an oath to support and defend the Constitution.
We do not serve a king. We do not serve a dictator. We serve the Constitution.
In Parker, Debbie Burke and her husband were among the crowd.
Voting's not enough anymore. We've got to get our voices out there as loud as we can in the biggest numbers we can find.
Denver police said on Sunday that 34 people were arrested Saturday for things like blocking streets and throwing stuff at cops. CPR photojournalist Hart Van Denberg joins us to give us a recap of what happened in Denver, where the largest protests took place. Hart, that was the largest demonstration in Colorado since 2020. Can you take me to the scene?
Yeah, I think the moment that I realized that it was going to be huge was probably in the middle of this enormous column of people moving west, all the way across Colfax Avenue. This was an enormous protest.
And these were actually multiple different protests, two of them, right? There was one at noon and another at 4.
So the protest at noon was the No Kings protest, and this was the protest that had been promoted nationally, and it was the biggest crowd. It was people from all walks of life. They did a loop around town and came back to Civic Center Park. So the 4 o'clock was organized around immigrant rights and opposing President Trump's deportation policies. A lot of Mexican flags being waved, a lot of signs in Spanish. One of the chants that you heard a lot of, whether it was in English or in Spanish, because a lot of it was in Spanish, was "The people united will never be divided."
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
That's exactly right. Your Spanish is better than mine. They went south on Broadway, eventually getting to the governor's mansion, and that's when people in the crowd were yelling at the security detail behind the fences of the governor's mansion. But still, it was they might have been shouting, but there was no violence or anything.
It was, in fact, so peaceful that at some point you thought you were going home, but you actually had to get right back out there. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so thought I was getting ready to go home because it didn't seem like there was much going on. At that moment, our reporter covering the front of the march, Chiara Damare, messaged the newsroom and said she was starting to hear the sounds of pepper balls being fired.
Wow.
Got there really as things began to heat up. I saw the first smoke bombs go up. It looked like someone had lit a bonfire. And so I did what I do, which is made my way to the front of the protest, and so was with the protesters as this line of very imposing-looking riot police began pushing the protesters back away from Interstate 25, which was what they wanted to get to. They were firing pepper balls. All those chemicals get in your lungs and eyes, and they just debilitate you. My lungs were full of gunk.
Now, Hart, you've covered multiple protests. I mean, the 2020 ones, the Women's March. Based on those movements, is there more to come?
No one knows, right? But from what we all witnessed from those protests, it was clear that organizers of both of those things hoped to use the energy and the crowd to carry their message and their momentum forward. And we'll see.
Thank you so much, Hart.
You're welcome, Arlo.
You can see all of Hart's photographs at CPR.org.
Public lands in Colorado and other western states would be sold off under the U.S. Senate's version of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. That's the congressional budget being worked on. This version would require a small percent of public land, less than 1%, to be sold. But when you add that up across the states, it's more than 3 million acres. CPR's Caitlin Kim is here to explain. Caitlin, this plan comes from Senate Republicans. What exactly does it propose?
So Utah Senator Mike Lee proposes that what he calls underused public lands that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service be put up for sale. Now, people interested in buying those pieces of land could nominate parcels for, housing or community needs. And lands with special designations like national parks and monuments would not be eligible. Same with areas with existing rights. Think mining claims or grazing permits. They couldn't sell those. And Lee says all this land could generate $5 to $10 billion to help pay for their tax and spending bill.
Can you give us a sense of just how much land we're talking about here in Colorado? Less than 1% may seem small to some people, at least on paper.
Yeah, so those two agencies manage just under 20 million acres in Colorado. So that would mean, according to my math, up to 147,000 acres that would be put up for sale. To help you envision sort of that size, that's larger than all of Colorado Springs, which is the biggest city in Colorado in terms of total area.
What do Colorado's politicians in D.C. think about this? Were any of them part of adding this plan to the Senate's big budget bill?
No, and that's just one bone of contention. Senator John Hickenlooper sits on Lee's committee, and this is what he told me.
I mean, it is mind-numbing that something like this could come forward without any discussion. No one asked my opinion or Michael Bennett's opinion. No one asked, to my knowledge, anyone's opinion outside a very small group of people that were hell-bent on chaos.
The reality is that Republicans are looking to pass this themselves without Democrats, so their protests don't really carry much weight. Colorado has 3 Republicans that sit on the House Natural Resources Committee, Lauren Boebert, Jeff Crank, and Jeff Hurd. I reached out to their offices to see what they think of this idea, but as of this taping, more than a day later, only Hurd responded. Now, he's following any changes in the bill and says he encourages the Senate to stick as closely as possible to what the House passed.
So the House dropped the plan, but Senate Republicans are still pushing for it. One thing that's interesting here is that this plan forces the sale of land in all western states except one. Montana is not included on the list. Why does Montana get a pass?
Bozzy, you're not going to be surprised to hear that politics are involved. So Republicans in Montana, are against the idea of public land sales. So a key Republican House member from Montana helped kill a smaller public land sale plan in the House version of the Big Beautiful Bill. And that Republican, Congressman Ryan Zinke, is still against public land sales. So we'll have to see what happens, because if this proposal passes the Senate, it does have to get approval in the House again before the land sales would be possible. And Hickenlooper definitely noticed that Montana is excluded and thinks the same should be true for Colorado. He says if people in local areas want to sell public lands, that should come from the ground up, and their lawmakers should push for it in D.C. It shouldn't be D.C. dictating to Colorado to sell federal public lands.
CPR's Caitlin Kim in D.C. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you, Bozzy.
A small update. Congresswoman Boebert's office did get back to us later on. Boebert supports the land sales idea. She says most federal lands in the West are poorly managed and that this proposal will lead to more sustainable management. Now, you heard Caitlin say national park land would be excluded from the sell-offs, but Republicans also aim to cut hundreds of millions of dollars from the National Park Service. And if you're visiting this spring and summer, you may already notice that the parks have lost lots of staff through layoffs, buyouts, and early retirements prompted by Trump's cost-cutting efforts.
To keep these parks open and have this image of a visitor experience that is untouched by all of this evisceration. It's a mirage.
Tracy Coppola is with the advocacy group National Parks Conservation Association. The group estimates the Park Service has lost about 13% of its workforce in Trump's second term. That includes a shortage of rangers who rescue people who get in over their heads in the parks. House Republicans approved another $250 million in cuts to national parks, and President Trump's proposed budget goes further to slash more than $1 billion.
This presidential budget would gut the national park system. It would be the largest cut in National Park Service history, and the history goes back over 109 years.
Her group estimates the Park Service would have to offload smaller sites it manages in Colorado and elsewhere, which could include the new historical site at Amachi. At this point, neither budget proposal is final.
Pueblo, Fountain, and Estes Park. Those are the Colorado cities where some Safeway workers started striking yesterday morning. The union responsible is UFCW Local 7. It said it's starting its strike in this very limited number of stores and cities to allow for, quote, Safeway Albertsons time to understand the seriousness of the workers' resolve and at the same time reduce the hardship on shoppers and workers alike that results from widespread strike, end quote. People who work at the distribution center in Denver also went on strike. The union did not say when the strike may expand to other cities, if it will at all. But it added that employees in Colorado cities that have not already voted to authorize the possibility of a strike will consider the option this week. That includes Colorado Springs, Longmont, Loveland, and Fort Collins. And as always, a disclaimer. Safeway is among the financial sponsors for Colorado Today, but it has no influence over editorial decisions.
There's certainly nothing wrong with a Minecraft movie or Final Destination Bloodlines, but what if big commercial flicks just aren't your thing? Where can people in Metro Denver turn for under-the-radar film screenings? That's what Aurora resident Susan Green wanted to know.
I'm wondering what's up with Denver movie theaters.
CPR's Lauren Antonoff Hart gets to the bottom of things in this week's Colorado Wonders. Lauren, what is Susan's concern about Denver movie theaters?
When I talked to Susan, she was feeling like there just aren't a lot of options when it comes to what kinds of movies she can see in Denver.
I have to go to see my family in New York or Chicago or the Bay Area to see movies. I'm wondering if movie theaters are afraid that nobody will see anything but the blockbusters.
I also wanted to know if that was true and where to send indie movie lovers.
A lot of people may have those questions. So what did you turn up?
Well, Susan was onto something.
New York and LA and Chicago, those places are what's called an A market.
Keith Garcia is the artistic director of Denver's Independent C Film Center.
And that just means demographic, population size. The movie studios and distributors just think that there's more people who want to see movies all the time.
And Denver, meanwhile...
We're a C. I always hoped we were a B, but we're a C.
Oh, no. What does that mean exactly to be a C?
It means Denver has a smaller audience and fewer screens available than those larger cities, which makes it harder for small indie releases to get picked up. But you may get lucky and catch a short run of an indie film at huge multiplexes, think AMC and Cinemark, because they have so many screens to fill. So a distributor could call the head of AMC and be like,
I have this independent French film. Do you want to play it on your screens? The screens that you just need to fill in your multiplex.
And the head of AMC might say,
sure, why not? We'll give it a week.
But Garcia said there's little to no marketing done for these limited screenings.
They're just hoping viewers stop by and happen to be like, oh, I noticed this French film's playing there when I went to see Lilo and Stitch. Maybe I'll come check it out. But unfortunately, those two often just stay 1 week and then disappear.
Oh, man. Sounds like a tough road for these indie filmmakers and distributors, at least here in Denver. So where does all of this leave things for Susan and indie film lovers?
I think if folks don't want to keep a close eye on the multiplexes, even ones like Alamo Drafthouse that have more curated programming than other major chains, they have one reliable option, which is the C Film Center on Colfax.
We are Denver's only independent movie theater. Every other theater within Denver is a corporate theater that is working their programming in more of an algorithm, less human-based, curation-based.
And the C does things differently.
We like to take risks on some stuff to kind of keep it exciting and give opportunities as much as we can to as many of these films.
Garcia said he keeps an eye on what's happening in the A markets in hopes of bringing those movies to the C. And even if a number of those films don't end up in the theater throughout the year, Garcia said moviegoers will at least be able to catch them at the Denver Film Festival in the fall.
I'd like to think we're an A market at least during that festival.
Yes.
CPR's Lauren Antonoff Hart. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Reporting for today's show came from CPR's Ishan Thakur, Tony Gorman, Kara Damari, Haley May, Stina Sieg, and KRCC's Andrew Chalfin. To stay informed on the biggest things happening in your state, be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Shop online and get $30 off your first online order when you use code SAVE30 at checkout. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started at Safeway.com or the Safeway app.